In continuation of what I discussed last day, next what I would like to discuss with you is obtaining a bilateral Laplace transform using unilateral Laplace transform. For the sake of illustration, I have considered the arbitrarily chosen non-causal signal ft. So the part to the right of this t equal to 0 axis, that is the causal component of ft, and the part to the left, that is the anti-causal component of left t. So we may write that ft is the sum of f1 and f2. Therefore, its Laplace transform fs is the sum of the Laplace transform of f1 and Laplace transform of f2. Okay, you draw, then I'll proceed. F1 is, which is the Laplace transform of small f1t, it can be straightway obtained by using your knowledge of the one-sided Laplace transform. But what about the Laplace transform of f2t? It's an anti-causal signal. So you cannot use your knowledge of the unilateral Laplace transform. So how to tackle with that problem? For obtaining the Laplace transform of the anticausal component using unilateral Laplace transform, you have to consider the time revised version of small f2t. If you reverse in time the anticausal component, it will become a causal component. So then you can use unilateral Laplace transform to obtain the Laplace transform of the time reversed component. All right. But how to relate it to the Laplace transform of the anticausal component? Actual anticausal component. That means on reversing it in time in the time domain about the t equal to 0 axis, you get small f2 minus t. Small f2 minus t is a causal signal. So you can straightway use its unilateral Laplace transform. But you are interested in the Laplace transform of small f2a, small f2t. How is the Laplace transform of f2 minus t related to the Laplace transform of f2t? In what manner? Tell me. How from the Laplace transform of the, yes, how from the unilateral Laplace transform of small f2t you can get back capital F2s? Okay, you have completed, I think. So just see that I have converted it into a causal signal. So small f1, the unilateral Laplace transform is obtained in this manner using that expression, and Laplace transform of f2t, which is capital F2s, this is the basic expression. If that is the case, then what will be f2 minus s? Just here, s has to be replaced by minus s. All right. And here t has to be replaced by minus t. S will remain as it is, and t has to be replaced by minus t. So e to the power st becomes e to the power minus st on replacing t with minus t, and f2 minus t is here because you have reversed it in time. All right. So what will happen now? What does that represent? It represents capital F2 minus S. All right, capital F2 minus S. Thus, the Laplace transform, unilateral Laplace transform of F2 minus t is nothing but capital F2 minus S. Once you get capital F2 minus S, just by reversing the sign of S in the expression, you will get capital F2S. You have obtained capital F1S straightway. Now you have up to capital F2S has been obtained. So you can add these two to get the complete Laplace transform. All right. I have taken one example. Although this is a very simple example, without using the unilateral Laplace transform, you could have obtained the Laplace transform straightway. It's very simple expression. Still, for the sake of illustration, I'll consider this two-sided signal, and I will split it up into two parts. One is the causal part and the other one is the anti-causal part. For the causal part, I'll use the knowledge of unilateral Laplace transform and then convert the anti-causal part into a causal signal. How to do that? Just see here that xt is e to the power alpha t u minus t. That represents x2t. All right. This is x2t. And x1t is simply a causal signal e to the power minus alpha t ut. So x2t is an anti-causal signal. Anti-causal signal component. X1t is the causal signal component. Xs will be x1s plus x2s. X1s, you have a knowledge of x1s from your knowledge of Fourier transform and the relation between the Laplace transform and Fourier transform. So what will be the expression for the Laplace transform of e to the power minus alpha t ut? This is actually x2t and this is x1t. এটার কি হবে? What will be the unilateral Laplace transform? Or same thing, e to the power minus alpha t ut.
So 1 by s plus alpha.
1 by s plus alpha. Fine. Now regarding x to t, this part, if you reverse it in time, what will you get? It will become same as that one because it has even function symmetry. Xt has even function symmetry. So on time reversing x to t, it will become same as x1t. So x2 minus s, x2 minus s will be 1 by s plus alpha, isn't it? X2 minus s, that will be 1 by x plus alpha. So x2s will be 1 by s plus alpha. Right?
So that should be 1 by minus s plus alpha, no?
Right, that's true. Then you have to convert it back to x2s by inverting the sign of s. Just see here. X2s is, oh sorry, this is s plus alpha and this is minus s plus alpha. X2s is minus s plus alpha.
Yes, sir.
So xs is x1s plus x2s and the region of convergence is sigma value from minus alpha to plus alpha. So region of convergence is a vertical strip extending from sigma equal to minus alpha to sigma equal to plus alpha. That is therefore xs. Just 1 minute. X2 minus s, x2s, all right. So this is xs, and that is the region of convergence. So for the causal component, the region of convergence for the Laplace transform, it starts from sigma equal to minus alpha, extends rightward, shown by this arrow, up to sigma equal to plus infinity. All right, for the causal component. For the anti-causal component, it starts from s equal to alpha and extends leftward up to s equal to minus infinity. Now the two ROCs of x1s and x2s, they overlap in this region, extending from sigma equal to minus alpha to sigma equal to plus alpha. Therefore, the ROC of xs, it's a vertical strip of finite width in the direction of sigma axis. In the direction of j omega axis, it will extend in this direction up to plus infinity, and in this direction up to minus infinity. So that is a vertical strip of finite width because it's a non-causal signal. In the same figure, you can easily find that if it is a causal signal of finite width, as a causal signal of infinite width, then the ROC will extend in the rightward direction up to plus infinity. If it is an anti-causal signal of infinite duration, it will extend to the left of a particular value of s and extend up to minus infinity. And because xt is an infinite duration two-sided signal, therefore infinite duration two-sided signal, remember, therefore the region of convergence has a finite width in the direction of sigma axis. What will happen if xt has finite duration? We'll see that later. In this case, remember that in the earlier case, what happened? I considered that alpha is positive. Based on the assumption that alpha is positive, we have such a depiction of the waveform of xt. If alpha is negative, if alpha is less than 0, what will happen? This will be the nature of xt. Travels upward in both directions. Now here, what will happen? You will find that the procedure will be same. But when you try to find out the ROC of x1s and x2s, what will happen? Each of there's a mistake, typing mistake. Each of x1s and x2s has an ROC. You will find that x1s has an ROC and x2s also has an ROC. But the two ROCs, they don't overlap. Therefore, in this case, xs does not exist. All right. Why do they don't overlap? Just see here that in this case, what will happen? The sign of alpha will be just reversed. Here, alpha is greater than 0. All right. If you consider alpha less than 0, then what will happen? Sigma, the region of convergence, tries to come out as sigma greater than a positive quantity, less than a negative quantity. That cannot happen. Sigma cannot be simultaneously greater than a positive quantity and less than a negative quantity. So the ROC is absent in case of XS. There is no overlap between the ROCs of X1x and X2s. I have missed X2s here. Therefore, the Laplace transform XS does not exist. Effect of ROC of Laplace transform on the nature of the time domain signal. Here, just for the sake of illustration, you have been asked to find out the inverse Laplace transform of the expression Fs equal to 1 by s plus 2 minus 1 by s minus 1. No, there is no mention of the ROC of Fs. You know that if the ROC of Fs is not given together with the expression for Fs, it is not possible for you to do the inverse Laplace transformation without the knowledge of the ROC. But from the given expression, if you are able to locate where are the poles lie, where do the poles lie? If the location of the poles can be ascertained, then you can easily identify all the possible ROCs of Fs. Here I have given you the pole zero plot. Basically, it's a pole plot because zero is not there. So where are the poles located? At sigma equal to 1, all right, or s equal to 1 and at s equal to minus 2, clear from these two factors. If these are the location of the poles, you can easily identify the ROC, isn't it? How? On what basis can you identify the possible ROCs? You have to consider two things. One is that the ROC cannot lie, the poles cannot lie in the ROC. No pole can lie in the ROC. That is the first point that you should remember. Second point that you should remember is that whenever there is a boundary between an ROC and a region of divergence, at least one pole must lie in that boundary. If there are more than one boundaries, then at each boundary there will be one pole. So two poles will be exhausted at these two boundaries. Other than the two boundaries, the poles may lie in the ROD or may not, depending on the nature of Fs. So here, what are the possibilities? One is obviously the region of convergence. It will be a vertical strip extending from sigma equal to 1 in the rightward direction up to sigma equal to plus infinity. All right, sigma equal to plus infinity. From this position of sigma up to sigma equal to plus infinity, a vertical region whose edge is parallel to the j omega axis. So real value of s greater than 1, that will be one of the ROCs. And that ROC will represent the ROC of the Laplace transform of a causal signal, isn't it? Causal component. Similarly, if you consider the location of the other pole, that is at s equal to minus 2. So there will be another ROC which will start from sigma equal to minus 2, extend leftward up to sigma equal to minus infinity, a vertical region whose edge is here parallel to the j omega axis. Corresponding to that ROC, we will have one anticausal component. And what is the third possibility? I have told you, we have just come across such a situation that there is an ROC of finite width extending from sigma equal to minus 2 to sigma equal to 1. All right. And it's a vertical strip extending in the direction of sigma axis from sigma equal to minus 2 to sigma equal to plus 1, and in the vertical direction from towards plus infinity and here towards minus infinity. These are the three possibilities. Therefore, because nothing is mentioned about the ROC for which you have to find out the inverse Laplace transform, your duty becomes to find out the inverse Laplace transform for all possible ROCs. Write it down, then I'll proceed. Others?
Yes, sir. Then
So these are the ROCs. That one corresponds to one extending from sigma equal to minus infinity, sigma equal to 1 rightward up to sigma equal to plus infinity. So real s is greater than 1. Second is real s less than minus 2. From starting from sigma equal to minus 2, it extends leftward up to sigma equal to minus infinity. So this one will result in a causal component, that one will result in a causal signal, this one will result in an anti-causal signal, and third one, where the real value of s extends from minus 2 to 1, it will result in a two-sided signal, non-causal signal. Now come back to the expression of Fs. This is Fs. For real s greater than 1, if it is greater than 1, yes, what will happen? Both 1 by s plus 2 and 1 by s minus 1, they will be the Laplace transforms of causal signals. Therefore, inverse Laplace transform will be the inverse Laplace transform of 1 by s plus 2, which will be a causal signal, and 1 by s minus 1, that one also will be a causal signal. So it's e to the power minus twice t ut minus e to the power t ut. All right. When real s is less than minus 2, both of 1 by s plus 2 and 1 by s minus 1, they will be Laplace transforms of anti-causal signals. So that is the expression. Minus e to the power minus 2t u minus t e to the power t u minus t. And for the last ROC, real s or sigma greater than minus 2 less than 1, 1 by s plus 2 is the Laplace transform of a causal signal, and 1 by s minus 1 is the Laplace transform of an anti-causal signal. Because now the Laplace transform of the causal signal and anti-causal signal, they will overlap. That's why we have obtained those observations. So here, the inverse Laplace transform will be e to the power minus twice t ut plus e to the power t u minus t. So you may come across MCQ. If you just convert it as a rational function, what will be the numerator and what will be the denominator? In the numerator, you will have s minus 1 minus s minus 2. All right, that means minus 3 in the numerator. And in the denominator, a square term will be there. Then s will be there. 2s minus s. That means s term will be there. S square plus s. All right, plus 2. So in the MCQ, you may be given the expression for fs either in this form or as a ratio of numerator polynomial and denominator polynomial, with the denominator polynomial either factorized or converted into a quadratic. And you may be asked to find out the given several ROCs and you have to select the correct combination. So that type of question is very common, because to determine the ROC, simply the concept is required, not much of mathematical calculation at all is required. All right. Now here you have been asked to find out the Laplace transform of the signal xt equal to delta t minus 4 by t e to the power minus t ut plus 1/3 e to the power twice t ut. So Laplace transform of xt will be the sum of the individual Laplace transforms. It follows from the linearity property of Laplace transform. Laplace transform of delta t is 1. Laplace transform of 4 by 3 e to the power minus t ut, it is 4 divided by 3 into s plus 1. Because it's a causal signal, the region of convergence will be sigma greater than minus 1. Now here you have an causal component once more. So Laplace transform of this causal component is 1 by 3 into s minus 2, with the ROC represented by sigma greater than 2. Therefore, xs will be the sum of all these three terms. And region of s will be greater than 2. What is the region of convergence of the Laplace transform of delta t, which is 1? What is the ROC?
All real axis, all the values on the real axis.
The entire S plane. Entire S plane is the region of convergence. Now, where do these two ROCs overlap? It overlaps for sigma greater than 2. Therefore, if you just combine these two, add up all these components, it will result in s minus 1 whole square divided by s plus 1 into s minus 2 with that ROC. If you observe the ROC, just see that the ROC does not contain, it does not include the j omega axis. It falls to the right of the j omega axis. J omega axis doesn't lie in the ROC. What is the significance of this observation? Tell
That
me
the
one
signal
thing.
is a stable one.
Huh?
Means the system is stable.
This is not a system, this is a simple signal. Okay, let me put the question the other way around. This is an expression for a Laplace transform. In this expression, you know what the time domain signal is, all right? In this expression, if you replace S with j omega, will that yield the Fourier transform of xt? Why?
So because u of j omega has that additional term pi of x naught of delta omega.
Huh?
So that Fourier transform of the unit step signal has that additional term 1 by j omega plus pi of x of 0 into delta omega.
How does the Fourier transform of ut come in here? Recall for what type of signals you can substitute S equal to j omega in the expression for the Laplace transform to yield the Fourier transform. Do you remember?
Integrable, sir.
Signals which are absolutely integrable. Unbounded signals are not absolutely integrable. So just see that there is an unbounded component, 1/3 e to the power twice t ut. Therefore, due to the presence of that unbounded component, xt is not absolutely integrable. All right. Grows without bounds as you increase the value of t. So that fact has manifested itself such that the Laplace transform of xt, its region of convergence does not include the j omega axis. It means that the Laplace transform, if you replace S with j omega, that will not converge. So such a thing will not happen here because the ROC of xs does not include the j omega axis. So simply if you are given this figure showing the ROC, all right, just showing the ROC. And if you are asked this question that whether on substituting S equal to j omega, you can you get that Fourier transform of xt? Because here the Fourier transform of xt, it does not converge. And that is because of presence of this term in the time domain signal, that term. So that is the significance of the ROC not including the j omega axis. Just see that there is a pair of poles located at the same position at S equal to 1. Sorry, 0. A pair of zeros. A pair of zeros at S equal to 1. properties of the region of convergence, not properties of Laplace transform, but the properties of the region of convergence of bilateral Laplace transform. Some of the properties I have already mentioned in the course of my discussion. Others are there also. A few more properties. First is that the ROCs, in case of the bilateral Laplace transform, they will simply be vertical strips. That means strips parallel to the j omega axis in the S plane. It will extend from, in direction of the j omega axis, it will extend from minus infinity to plus infinity in the direction of the j omega axis. That is to begin with, the first property. For rational Laplace transform, the ROCs cannot include poles because obviously at the poles xs tends to infinity. So ROC means the region of convergence. Region of convergence is that region in the S plane where xs is finite. All right, our Laplace transform converges means xs becomes finite, but at the poles xs is infinite. So the poles cannot lie in the ROC. They can lie in the ROD. They can lie at the boundary of the ROC and ROD, but not inside the ROC. The third property is that the ROC of XS should be a continuous region in the S plane. So if you consider two regions in the S plane between which there is no commonality, nothing common, they are not contiguous. In that case, they cannot constitute the ROC of any given signal. Property 4 is what I have mentioned already, that at every boundary of the ROC and the ROD, there must be at least one pole of XS. That means at least one pole of XS should lie at every boundary between the region of convergence and region of divergence of the Laplace transform. Next one is, if xt is of finite duration and if there is at least one value of s for which the Laplace transform converges, then the ROC will be the entire S plane. I repeat, if xt is of finite duration and if there is at least one value of s for which the Laplace transform converges, then the ROC is the entire S plane. I'll prove this fifth property because that will give you some insight into what is the state of affairs. So this is a finite duration signal. Suppose xt into e to the power minus sigma t, this is absolutely integrable for some value sigma equal to sigma 0. So sigma equal to sigma 0 is a value where the Laplace transform converges. S equal to sigma 0 is that value for which the Laplace transform converges. So xt into e to the power minus sigma t is absolutely integrable for some value of sigma equal to sigma 0. It means that magnitude of xt into e to the power minus sigma 0 t integrated over minus infinity to plus infinity, that means over t1 to t2, because outside that span xt is 0. So that integral should be finite. All right. It means that the line, vertical line, sigma equal to sigma 0 will lie in the ROC. For sigma equal to sigma 1 to also lie in the ROC, what should happen? That integral should be finite. Now to consider that, what have I done? Magnitude of xt e to the power minus sigma 1 t. With that I have multiplied e to the power minus sigma naught t and again multiplied by e to the power sigma naught t. Just that manipulation has been done. So that has to be finite. Let us consider that sigma 1 is greater than sigma 0. If sigma 1 is greater than sigma 0, what will happen? That term sigma 1 minus sigma 0, it will be positive. So you have a term e to the power minus some positive constant into t. So it's a exponentially decaying signal, e to the power minus sigma 1 minus sigma 0 into t. If sigma 1 is greater than sigma 0, that is an exponentially decaying signal. For exponentially decaying signal, smaller is the value of small t, larger will be the value of this exponentially decaying signal, isn't it? Just see here. This is the exponentially decaying signal. So smaller is the value of t, larger will be the value of this exponentially decaying signal. So what will happen? Just 1 minute. So sigma 1 greater than sigma 0, this is a decaying exponential. So as I pointed out, for the decaying exponential, smaller is the value of small t, larger will be the value of the decaying exponential. Now here, what will happen? Our region of interest is extends from capital T1 to capital T2. Then what is the maximum value of this exponentially decaying signal? It is e to the power minus sigma 1 minus sigma 0 into the minimum value of t. That minimum value of t is capital T1. So we have to show that this integral is infinite. This integral is finite. So what do I do? Here in the expression, I have replaced e to the power minus sigma 0 into small t by its maximum value. So once I have replaced it by its maximum value, I have taken it out because I am considering the maximum value. Therefore, this will be less than this maximum value times that integral. All right. Therefore, this is finite because this one we have started on the assumption that this one is finite. This is finite. That one is maximum at some finite value. Its maximum possible value is shown here. That is finite. Therefore, this integral is finite. And this integral is finite means sigma equal to sigma 1 is also in the ROC. So this is true for all sigma 1 greater than sigma 0. All right. This is true for all sigma 1 greater than sigma 0. Write down here. Then so one thing, just don't write less than infinity here. I'm just correcting it because that will create confusion. We have started on this premise. This is finite. Now here we will replace e to the power minus sigma 1 minus sigma 0 t by its maximum value and show that that is also finite. This is finite. This one is finite. That will prove that this entire thing is finite. That means the left hand side will be finite. So that is case 1. Sigma is greater than sigma 0. That means that signal is a decaying exponential. Its maximum value is shown here over that span T1 to T2. So replacing e to the power minus sigma 1 minus sigma 1 t by its maximum value, you get that this is less than this one. So it will be less than infinity. That one is less than infinity and this one is finite. Second case, what will happen if sigma 1 is less than sigma 0? Now, remember that this is true for any value of sigma 0, greater than sigma 1, greater than sigma 0. Sigma 1 less than sigma 0. By similar logic, you will find that Now also, just see here that the maximum value in this case is e to the power minus sigma 1 minus sigma 0 into capital T2, because this is a growing exponential and its value will be maximum at the other end, the larger value of T1 and T2. So if you replace here small t with capital T2, that is the maximum possible value of e to the power minus sigma 1 minus sigma 0 into small t. That integral is finite. This is finite. So that left hand side will be finite. Therefore, xt e to the power minus sigma 1 t is absolutely integrable for all sigma 1 less than sigma 0. So what have we shown? If xt into e to the power minus sigma 0 t, it's absolutely integrable, then xt into e to the power minus sigma t for all values of sigma greater than sigma 0 and less than sigma 0, they are absolutely integrable. Therefore, the region of xs will lie in the will be the entire S plane. Because that xt into e to the power minus sigma t will be valid for all possible sigmas. So it will cover the entire S plane. Consider this example, that of a rectangular pulse. Unit height extending from t equal to a to t equal to b. All right. So if you try to find out the Fourier transform, this is the way that we should proceed. And it comes out as e to the power minus sa minus e to the power minus sb. So is it apparent that there will be a pole at s equal to 0? If there is a pole at s equal to 0, it implies that the ROC is not the entire S plane. This is a finite duration signal, as you can see. So according to the property that I have just discussed, in this case, the Laplace transform will have the ROC as the entire S plane. So here, apparently, there is a pole at S equal to 0. So limit S tending to 0 Fs in such a condition should be infinite if there is at all a pole at S equal to 0. So what is the value of limit S tending to infinity, S tending to 0 Fs? What will that be equal to? If you substitute here S equal to 0, it is of the form 0 by 0. All right, indeterminate form. So now you apply L'Hopital's rule. Differentiate the numerator and denominator. Sorry, it has come here. Just 1 minute. 0 by 0, so you differentiate the numerator and denominator with respect to s. What do you get here? In the numerator, you will have the term b minus a, and in denominator, you will have the term 1. So it comes out as b minus a. So just see that in the limit as s tending to 0, fs is not infinite. It has a finite value, b minus a. So no pole at s equal to 0. Therefore, the ROC here is the entire S-plane. The only hindrance came from the fact that there was apparently a chance that there may be a pole at s equal to 0. Now we have removed that doubt, and therefore the ROC the ROC covers the entire S-plane. Consider another example, a time truncated everlasting exponential signal. Here I am considering that a is greater than 0. I haven't written it down, but consider a greater than 0. All right. But it's truncated in time. So prior to t equal to 0, that signal xt is 0. From xt equal to 0 to capital T, it is exponentially decaying, and after capital T, it comes down to 0, continues to be at 0 up to t equal to infinity. So what is the Laplace transform of that signal? I have used the Laplace transform expression, started from the basic. Integration should extend from 0 to capital T, because prior to that, both of these step signals, they have 0 values, ut minus tau. It extends from 0 to t. So that is the expression. 2 equal to sign here by mistake. Comes out as 1 minus e to the power minus s plus a into capital T by s plus a. So here, if you straightway introduce this limit, it comes out of this form, comes out in this form, 0 by 0. So here also you have to apply the L'Hopital's rule. Limit s tending to minus a xs, it comes out as a finite quantity, capital T. So there is no pole at s equal to minus a. That was the only chance. Because xs has finite value at s equal to minus a, therefore there is no pole. So here also the ROC is the entire S-plane. property 6, xt, if xt is a right-sided signal, and if the line real value of s equal to sigma 0 is in the ROC, then all values of h for which real value of s is greater than sigma 0 will also lie in the ROC. All right. That fact can be proved in line with what I have proved for property 5. So that is a very simple case. Now it is possible for a right-sided signal to be such that there is no value of s for which xs converges. That is given by one example is given as xt equal to e to the power t later on, that whether there is whether the Laplace transform for that signal converges or not. The proof is similar to case 1, isn't it, of the earlier proof, earlier property. I have given the proof here. Same one as case 1 here. Property 7, if xt is a left-sided signal and if the line sigma equal to sigma 0 is in the ROC, then for all values of all values of S for which sigma is less than sigma 0 will also be in the ROC. I have not given the proof, all right. That is case 2. Problem with number. Property 7, next one will be property 8. This is property 8, not 7. If xt is a two-sided signal and if the line sigma equal to sigma 0 lies in the ROC, then the ROC will consist of a vertical strip in the S plane, which will include the line sigma equal to sigma 0. All these cases, left-sided sequence, right-sided sequence, the two-sided signal, left-sided signal, right-sided signal, or two-sided signal, all these cases I have illustrated. So this is the general statement of the property of the ROC. The examples that I have considered, they have been illustrating all the types of signals, and these properties have been illustrated. Examples have been given. Now it has been generalized. So property number 8. Just make changes at two places, one or two places. I'm trying to find out. Yes, here. In this case, it should not be less than, it should be less than equal to. All right. Less than equal to. Also, change করেছো? Here also it should be less than equal to. Let's stop today. All right. So when will you have meet again? Monday. If it is Monday, it has to be from 6:30 because I will be going to the university most probably. All right. So I have a plan to end the lecture session on Monday. Let me see what's the situation. Thank you.